Oh dearie dear oh my. That, my friends, is the beauty of emulation. It needs to take that screenshot to for the pause menu. But everyone decided to come home. The whole family is going on vacation. Everyone decided to come home at once, and I just wasn't gonna keep rambling while things needed to go to the car. So okay. So now we're out of this. We have everything we need. We can start the sequence of events that lead up to us getting our mission for Ocarina of Time. But I inherently need to get that Deku stick upgrade just to say that I have completed XYZ. So we're just gonna kind of do a little exploit here. This rupee trick doesn't stop working, so I can't remember if it's 30 or 40, so we'll just do a little chit chat here. And while I was waiting for the first video to process, I went back to the how you don't play Ocarina of Time with Game Grumps, and God, I wish I had access to video editing software where I could intercut, and I will of course archive all these playthroughs and maybe make a video of my own. It's kind of inspired me to do this. Why not that? Need a little bit more money first, but I just love how it's intercut with a lot of the points that were going to immediately be shot down just by representative footage. And it's obvious early on in the playthrough that it's funny that it was Danny's suggestion that they play through it because he wanted to see what the fuss was about, because he was just like, oh, this sequelized video, this game must be terrible, or it must be on one extreme or the other. And it's obvious from the onset that Erin knows what he's going to get into under heavy scrutiny. He just seems terrified from the very beginning of this game, scared of it, and that he had been reading the comments from the sequelized video and seeing that everyone in the Zelda community that loves Ocarina of Time, for nostalgia or otherwise, had their pitchforks ready. They had some valid arguments too, and I think the biggest problem with the sequelized video was that it got off topic. The first two sequelized videos, the ones about Castlevania and Mega Man, are, and this is all opinion based, are solid videos. They really are just straight up solid. It's hard to argue with anything that's in there because they're just, you know, analysis or reviews of the games at hand, what's improved, and you know. And it's funny, you know, how he goes on to attack fanboys in the Ocarina of Time sequelitis, where he just completely fanboys out over Mega Man X, and more power to him. That's a great game that has, if there's any flaws with it, they're few and far between. I don't remember them, that's for certain. But then he goes on to this Ocarina of Time video, which essentially turns into a rant. I feel like it would have been better posturized, because towards the end, he starts attacking Skyward Sword. And, you know, he has all this time to script and make the video, and he's not just doing it off the cusp like he does with Game Grumps, or even like I'm doing now. He has time to postulize and write a script and have arguments, but he just kind of goes on this tirade where it just comes across as rhetoric, where he's just attacking 3D Zelda in general, but it also seems like he's directing them directly towards Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword in particular, and he kind of skips over the strides. Like, it was a massive undertaking where it seemed like he was going for how Zelda made a poor transition from 2D to 3D, but it kind of falls flat on his face. One, because he is terrible at Ocarina of Time, and two, he goes on to admit that he never even completed Skyward Sword at all. Now, I hate Skyward Sword. It is Zelda hand-holding at its finest, and as shallow as a puddle. But it does have some good elements. It makes very good use of the Motion Plus. Has some really nice graphics, really nice sound work, and it's a Zelda game, for God's sake. So you've got good people behind it. So does it deserve the 10 out of 10s it gets? Absolutely not. Nothing's perfect. I believe that a 10 out of 10 should never be given to a game unless it's stated beforehand that the game is just, we're saying you need to play this game, it's really good, but at face value a 10 makes a game seem like it's perfect, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think Game Informer gave Mass Effect 3 a 10 out of 10, and we all know how that went. But anyway, I feel like if Erin were to go back and redo that video, I feel like he could have constructed it in such a way, because it is a good video, but he kind of devalued it by playing Ocarina of Time, and he kind of devalued it by not approaching it in a way where he was pointing out how Ocarina, because you had to divine the message for yourself. You know, you had to divine the message for yourself that he was attacking 3D Zelda and how it had devolved because Ocarina of Time was such a success. And it's funny because it was followed up immediately by Majora's Mask, which took risk and changed the Zelda franchise for the better, and is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. So, there you go. Here is one of first of many encounters with the K4 Gabor Owl, who is essentially another inescapable tutorial, and it's one of the few areas of the game where you can just blast through the text, but then if you are not paying attention, you will repeat that text. There is exactly enough time to get from here to there, because this is meant to introduce you to the whole day-night cycle, but if you exploit Link's speed here and roll all the way here, you will not experience nighttime for the first time. And going back to my Majora's Mask video, Hyrule Field feels like a big, giant loading screen. An expo for the largest of the world, but also an expo for its vast, empty nature of bigness for the sake of bigness. So if we just get there just in time, we can get everything done without having to wait through a day and night cycle when the Style children start coming up out of the water. And here we are with something else that I touched on, that cardboard panorama, those objects out in the distance that are flat 2D structures. And it's interesting that this room is not, or a lot of the shops, not all of them, but a lot of the shops in Hyrule Castle Town are not pre-rendered 2D areas. They're actually fully explorable 3D, and it's kind of mind-boggling that they didn't do this. They of course fixed that in Majora's Mask. There's no 2D areas that are explorable in interior areas. They're all fully rendered in 3D like this. I think they were just playing it safe. I'm just trying to get as many rupees as we can, because I want to go ahead and just buy the Hylian Shield outright, because you can find it in the graveyard, but it's a big ordeal because you have to avoid Dampy, you have to stop, you have to make sure that Dampy's not around to get into that. Or actually I could wait. No. There's a lot of rupees in Ocarina of Time and just nowhere to put them until you get the Skulltula wall upgrade. Oh, I really wish they would have done that texture. Link needs glasses, that's what I'm getting there. That's all I'm getting. At some point, I'd like to turn on the L to levitate feature, the Game Shark feature that's included in Project 64, just to kind of get out and above and boundary break here, just to see what really is going on. Because honestly, it's just this 3D interior with that 2D exterior texture that you're just supposed to kind of look through the window and be like, oh, look, that's Hyrule Field, I was just there. And even from this distance, it just looks like a big blurry mess. But like I was saying, I'll just go ahead and buy the Hyrule Shield outright, because the discount's not worth it. You have so much money and there's nowhere for it to go, because the game is just so good about giving you resources and rupees in abundance, so there's no reason to hoard them or wait for the discount that you get for the Hylian Shield whenever you actually need it. So we'll just go ahead and get it. And plus, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it makes it easier for you to hide from the guards in the castle when you're on the approach for it. Whenever you have the Hylian Shield equipped, instead of doing that, you actually lay on your stomach with the Hylian Shield completely over your body, because it's essentially as big as you are. I really like in the 3DS remake that they fixed this and turned this all in here. Here is some really nasty, untouched texture work with some really low polygon characters, and just this guy with these black soulless eyes. Huh? What? Shoot, kid, shoot. Half on loose. I like that they tried to let's see. It doesn't look like Grant's kid. If you converse with these guys here, it becomes obvious that they become corrupt. If you never talk to them before Hyrule gets taken over by Ganon, you don't really get a background on how they allowed this apocalyptic event to kind of cloud their judgment and make them evil. Because, you know, like, he talks about his beard here, like, look how luxurious my beard is, and he becomes more avaricious and vain about it later on. But just kind of judging by how many times I fell walking across that bridge in Kokiri Forest trying to get that rupee up there on the top, I feel like once I go to do this little shooting minigame, and I forgot to do the shooting minigame in Lost Woods. Anyway, once you go to do this shooting minigame, I have this terrible feeling that I am not going to be able to hit the rupees because it's just too sensitive. And I went and checked, there's no way to make that dead zone quite right. Because if you try to lessen the dead zone, it becomes too not sensitive enough. But we're going to try this little shooting minigame here. And it's funny, Boundary Break points out that these shopkeepers do in fact not have legs. But why would they need to have legs? Because they're not really there. You know, you're not going to see behind the counter. Oh shit. No, too sensitive. Fuck. Fuck it. Too sensitive, God. Okay. I need to get some practice in with that, but I definitely want that bigger bag. And just with this old 2D rendering of the background, if you didn't know what everything already was, you have a vague idea, but honestly it just looks terrible. Has not aged well at all, especially in 1080p, and there's just, you can see the sectioning there where it's just split into these texture quadrants. It's really bad. I don't know what they were thinking at the time, because even game like Super Mario 64, you didn't see things like that. Yeah, you can see just the triangular sort of polygons where the textures are plastered, and it blows my mind that the frame rate doesn't go up there, because it goes up in the menu to 30. Let's see, we'll pause it. The frame rate will actually shoot up to 30 for the menu, but it doesn't do that in those areas. There's obviously a limit set in the code. Let's try this one more time. If I don't do it this time, then I'll do it off camera. Okay, now it's gonna come from the left. Just kind of inch. Nope, nope. Okay. Okay, this one's gonna jump up, and then we hit it. Oh my god, that is way too sensitive. Oh god. Okay. Okay, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. Fuck. God. Okay, one more time. As long as... Shit. I don't think I have enough bullets left to get all of them now. It's just so sensitive. It was definitely not meant to be played in an emulator. I'll do this off screen. Just forget this. It's not like you even really need that many bullets. It's just for the sake of completionism. Yeah, you don't even need to talk to Mel for the first time, but she'll act like later on like you've spoken to her, met her in the town, which I guess technically you did. Oh, that's some really good. That skybox looks fantastic. I never understood why there are areas in the game. Well, yeah, I do actually. It's kind of simple when you think about it. That in the town sections where, you know, day and night cycles affect whether or not what's inside each building and whether or not you can go inside. I feel like they were again afraid of the limitations of their hardware, having the day and night cycles work inside the towns, whereas in areas like this there's a constant clock timer that is in forward motion at all times, whereas in the towns, you know, where that would be a problem, it's taken out. Now, we go up these vines, we get caught for the first time. And I feel like this is a little strange that you can't do it any other way, but you have to get caught in order for Malin to spawn. Let's make her go away. Go to the castle. We're already here. It irritates me that and they fixed this in Majora's Mask. Titles, little hints and stuff are contextualized to your location, depending on where you're at, and they're triggered by location. And it's a little asinine that Navi will tell you to go somewhere and you're already there. Like, the castle's over there, and you're telling me to go to the castle. My name is Malin. My dad owns a lawn ranch. I've always shipped Malin. Okay, I guess I had to get that first text box out of the way. And we'll just give you my prized possession without us at least exchanging 2 to 3 sentences. But, Teehee. All the characters say teehee, and then you'll see there how they fix that in Majora's Mask as well. How the texture or the model when you get an item will kind of zoom out after you get it. And I've never understood why. It's something that grates on me every time I go back to play Ocarina of Time, is that every time you get an item and he holds it up in the air above himself, it'll kind of pop back out. Don't know why the code was written that way, but it is what it is. I'm really excited. There's it was Zelda Universe was advertising it. I'm very interested to see where it's at now. Like, it was an entirely, I'm sure Nintendo's probably done a cease and desist on it by now, as Nintendo is wont to do, where they had taken Ocarina of Time's engine and built completely new items, enemies, and just zones in general, and it's a true sequel to Ocarina of Time. Nintendo has such memorable properties, and the N64 in particular is so simple in its coding that it's really easy to make ROM hacks for it. And when really, really good ones start coming out, Nintendo immediately jumps on them and destroys them. So we wake up Malin, who is, if not at first glance, obviously a nod to Mario and the way he appears and his color palette. He's Mario in Zelda. But I sat here to rest, and I guess I fell asleep. And it's funny to think that, you know, if you let the day and night cycle kind of loop, he'll sleep here for days upon weeks. And where's Defax when you need him, eh? And again, it's another one of those humorous moments that kind of falls flat. Oh, my 10, 12-year-old daughter's really gonna let me have it for leaving her alone in a public place during a time when raping and pillaging was perfectly acceptable. You know, it's kind of played up for laughs, but in my adult mind, I'm just like, ugh. I guess it's just me being disillusioned, but it could be funny. But as of right now, it just kind of goes into my pile of Ocarina moments that were not funny. And when I come to a truly funny moment, I will admit it. But as of right now, I'm stern, not a chuckle. I feel like I'm kind of off my pattern right now. I don't feel like I should be this far into the music. But it's not really so much important to keep in the groove every time I play this, because really honestly, what's the point of playing it if I'm just basically observing something, you know? The new textures, it'd be nice to kind of do things out of sequence for a change. Experiment a little. This is probably one of my favorite retro Zelda tracks that never gets used again. This isometric layout gets reused when you're in the Deku Palace in Majora's Mask, but this music's nowhere to be found, and I love this little... It doesn't really... It fits, but it doesn't. It's just really a nice little whimsical track, you know, of just a child sneaking into a castle, you know. Everything is so dire, but you don't know that yet, and I guess that's what helps it fit, along with it being orchestrally in the same key as everything else in the game up to this point. But not perilous at all, and again, I feel like this makes it harder for you to see, especially when we come to this next section that has the most aggravating pattern, because these guards are so out of sync with one another. And really in the grand... Oh, that's really good texture work on that mountain there. Even though that it's flat, those retextures look really good. It's good for the guards that they're patrolling in this way. because they cover a lot more ground, and it's a lot harder for you to sneak through, but damn it, it's a lot harder for you to sneak through. It's kind of like waiting at a goddamn four-way intersection on a highway that's intersecting with the interstate, you know? God, you just wait forever. There is so much goddamn waiting. But it's here for a reason. Okay, they're starting to synchronize up, and they're patrolling, starting to get a little link, so I'll be able to sneak through in a moment. But really, what are we looking at here? 30 to 45 seconds of waiting. Not too bad. Come on, just keep going, just keep going. I don't know if they're again, their line of sight is not a straight line, it's a cone in Ocarina of Time, so I don't know if that cone will actually extend to their back, so I'm hoping I can just sneak up behind them and just keep going, because if not, we're going to be here all day, and I just want to cut this short as soon as we get to Kakarikyo Village and give the letter to the guard. I think that's where I want to cut this off. And then again, I'll go back to the just to kind of keep my commentary as fresh as possible, because I know I'm so interesting to listen to, but just to keep my commentary as relevant as possible to the reason why it was made, I'll go back and watch a little bit more of the how not to play compilation, just to kind of keep it fresh in my mind about the arguments there and the points that Erin made and how they're kind of moved. That's another good retexture. Look at that, guys. It's obvious that if this whole project had come to fruition, this game would just look magnificent. If they were just able to get to all the 2D panorama type textures. Because looking in here like this just looks awful. But again, it's just a side thing for you to get some money. Or maybe you have to shoot Mario in particular for it to drop the money. Fuck you, Mario. It's supposed to shoot a 20-piece rupee out of here. I know this. Damn it. Don't fuck with me like this. Come on, maybe I have to shoot Bowser. There we go. It's just at a particular angle. There we go. And if you shoot this here, which is funny, you know, hey, you don't cause trouble. Bye. You know, you shoot this window here, and this guard just kind of swoops into the side like a fucking cartoon and throws a bomb. And there's a neat little exploit you can use. Oh, I can't wait to see the retexture on Zelda. There are none. No retextures on Zelda. Oh dear. I think there was some retexture work done for the eye closing animation, but it's not going through correctly. It's odd that the main damsel in distress of the game didn't get the retexture treatment. That's really jarring. Oh dear. I wasn't aware that Zelda was part of Pinhead's crew. That's something straight out of Hellraiser. Like, oh god. I know where it's taking those textures. It's taking those from the flashback sequence when you finally do get all. Oh god, make it stop. Where you save Zelda, or rather, spoilers. She reveals that she is Zelda. It's taking that from that cutscene because of it being in black and white, showing Link. But my god, that's the word I was looking for in my last sort of, here it is. Strange, it sounds somehow familiar. It's funny, 12 years old, but that's the word I was looking for earlier. That juxtaposition of textures is so jarring. But still, good artwork on the part of Nintendo, and everything that we've seen so far looks great, and doesn't clash so hard with the original art style that it's abrasive, like it can be sometimes when you're playing the Majora's Mask compilation, which is that mixture of cell shading and real world. And I like how you're kind of breadcrumb trail fed these little bits and pieces about the lore, and if you're paying close attention to each cutscene, it's kind of alluding to the fact that as the legend gets passed down and down and down and down from person to person to person, it kind of becomes there's a schism, a kind of breaking of the lore. Only one person knows so much at any given time, and and that's kind of what adds to the mystique of the Triforce, and why when someone will try to get it, or and why some people may even believe it doesn't even exist, just because of how the legend, all the eggs aren't in one basket. But I think this whole sequence could just be skipped. And oh god, I just want to kill this sequence. It's horrifying. Yes, I understood you. That's great. I forgot to tell you, I've been totes spying on somebody. And the dark clouds, I believe they symbolize that man in there. And, I want to see the retexture work on Ganondorf. Not a whole lot. It looks like there's some sharper textures there. Yeah, just a little bit of better sharpness. I've always liked the red jewel design on Ganondorf and that bright red hair and just that green skin. Like, really, he's just a totally imposing figure. Just all the complementary colors and stuff. He's pleasing to look at as a antagonist, among other things. And he just reeks of evil in every way. Like, there are no mistakes there. And how anyone... Oh, God. I've got to figure out where those textures are coming from. Stop blinking. I don't believe you. Well, then I'll keep this conversation awkwardly going until you do believe me, damn it. Thank you for following it completely in the linearity of this game. I don't know if I think it was just I hate to keep having to go back to this, the limitations of the hardware, and I guess the feeling of rushness in development. Why they didn't show the King of Hyrule or more interaction, or actually let you go into Hyrule Castle like they do in Twilight Princess. That's really a highlight of that game, in my opinion, is being able to explore Hyrule Castle in its entirety and just kind of make your way to the top without it being corrupted. Really like that. I hate how you cannot go into Hyrule Castle. Let's see if there's any retextures with Impa. Nope. God, there's so many main character models that are missing textures. I need to go back and see what's going on there exactly. I may have to remake my cache, because I definitely feel like Impa would be at the top of the list of retextures, you know. And my entire cache is almost 800 megabytes of textures, which is almost a gig bigger, over 100 times bigger than the actual game itself. And you'd think that Impa and Zelda of all the characters in the game would have proper retextures. I think it's just maybe some corruption in the cache. But here we learned Zelda's Lullaby, the first actual song in the game. Always love this, and there's some great simplicity and rhythm. I'll give this to Ocarina over Majora. There's some great melodies in Majora's Mask, but in Ocarina there's some simplicity to it, some nice flow that makes them easier to remember for when you need to play them, because all the progression kind of makes sense, at least from the control standpoint. Whereas in Majora's Mask, they don't flow so well. Like, you kind of have to know how they sound and what notes to play, because they just don't flow. They were trying to make the compositions more unique and different, but at the same time, they kind of sacrifice the ease of, left, up, right, and down, left, right, and easy little compositions like that, which sound great, and they're easy to remember. And that's a really good 2D texture rework. It's still a flat 2D texture. It's got nothing on Majora's Mask actual distance rendered of the mountain itself, but looks great nonetheless. And this goes back to how Erin complains, oh, you couldn't go up there until you were told why you want to go up there. Yeah, I could totally see that. In A Link to the Past, you're kind of just free to go as you please, and you run the real risk of dying because of being ill-equipped or just not being able to go forward. But if you go up to the mountain and talk to the guard before you have the note from Zelda, and I keep saying that's from Impa, it's from fucking Zelda. If you go up there without the letter, the guard basically tells you to go screw yourself, and you just have to go back and you have to be told you want to go up there. And that's a perfectly valid argument. There should be a way. It's a limitation, and I don't feel like Erin was fair at attacking Zelda from a game standpoint. Again, he was going towards that attacking 3D Zelda as a whole, and just criticizing this game for its age, but the conversation becomes skewed more. But it is a valid argument that there's no other way up the mountain. These are one of the things that are solved in Breath of the Wild. That if I see something, I can go to it, and I run the real risk of dying and being ill-equipped, and I don't need to be told why I want to go somewhere. We're gonna cheese this because you get a bottle here. But he's like, I'm going to take these 3 chickens that I've got, you got to find them in these chickens. Well, the chickens you can just kind of toss over here in this corner, and they will stay there. Or most of them will stay there, enough for you to be able to complete this mini-game. I've never been able to do this in time without cheating. So we're just going to cheat. We're going to cheat. I'm not really seeing any retexture work with the cuckoos like there is in Majora's Mask. I missed the redone texture of the cuckoos. But again, the artwork flows steadily, and I gotta say, now that I'm getting more acquainted with the controls at large, with this Xbox One controller, I don't mind it so much. I remember there was, with the N64 controller itself, like, there was some weight to Link's movements. There was some real weight. Like you could actually feel the resistance, and that came with the limitations of the hardware, the plastic on plastic analog stick. But here it just feels a little bit too slick. I'm getting acquainted to it though. These 3 cuckoos I have here are special super cuckoos, and I don't know why I didn't just make like the models a little bit bigger. I mean, I guess for the sake of the game, but there's nothing. There is no. It's all luck. Or or at least it feels that way about you being able to pick these cuckoos, because there's nothing different about the way they act or anything when in the gaggle. So we're just gonna go over here and we're gonna collect all 3 as quickly as we can. Get our bottle of Lon milk. It's plumb incredible, and going back, I've always shipped Zelda and Malon. They're my favorite Zelda couple, and it just makes the most sense. And I don't know. I've always had a thing with girls for red hair. Or at least I did for the longest time. I learned my lesson the hard way about that, but anyway. And they always just seem so cute. And they seem to have this kind of chemistry on screen, Malon and Link, that they're friends, and they kind of just, they grow up together and they have this connection, and later on you go on to save this ranch from the clutches of Ingo, which I'll be sure to pop in on before I leave. There's real chemistry there, and I feel like if because this starts the whole Link lineage thing, and these people that ship Zelda and Link are that's gross, bro. It's a repeating bloodline over and over. Always Link and Zelda. If they're always or at any point ending up together, that's another part about Skyward Sword that made me uncomfortable. Then there's incest going on there. You're definitely not gonna want to bone someone that's gonna keep getting reincarnated. I feel like if Link has descendants from this game, that it definitely comes from Malon, because Saria is immortal. She's a sage. She doesn't exist on this realm. Ru's a fish person. Ew. So I always feel like if you have any descendants, they definitely come from your pairing of Malon with Malon. And without going too deep into the rabbit's hole, that's of course saying if Link doesn't die in Majora's Mask, which I honestly don't think he does. I think he comes back. And I feel like the tones of regret because it's well established that the hero of time in Twilight Princess is in Twilight Princess, and he's the guy that teaches you all the secret moves and stuff that you learn from the Wolf Stones. The regret that he feels is that, I think maybe it's in Hyrule Historia, he's basically not allowed to, he becomes part of the Royal Guard or something when he comes back from Termina or whatever, and he's just not allowed to tell anyone. He has these regrets because he went back in time before. You still saved Hyrule and did this or that, but he doesn't get the recognition he deserves, and that's why he dies with regret. Anyway, we're gonna learn opponent's song here, completely optional, but there are some nudges in the game that tell you, here's the ranch. Why don't you go visit the ranch now that why don't you check in on the people that you helped out earlier at the castle. And it's never implied that you need to pull out the Ocarina. It's something that let's play it together. Yeah, it's implied. This is just one of the moments in the game where they forgot that we didn't need to be treated like fools, and it's implied that you should come back here, or try to reach this area to acquire this song, because later in the game there are ways around it. You're absolutely going to need the horse, but it's not something that's forced upon you, and that teeth retexture is terrifying. That gritting of the teeth. And of course, Gabor flies overhead. It would have been nice if he would have gotten and opponent's kind of glued to you for a second. That doesn't keep up. It would have been nice if he would have just spoken to you or come to you in a dream or something, and then just kind of been looming overhead, because it's established later on that basically Gabor is R-A-U, that sage, the sage of light, watching over you. And it would have been neat to, and here's Ingo, who is obviously supposed to be Luigi, the Luigi reference, but he's more, the more you look at him, he kind of feels, especially with the green, he feels like a Waluigi, definitely, especially with the way he looks. Wah! Wah! Okay, so let's get out of here before we get constant ID for Long Range's music. Okay, so here's where we're gonna want to make it to Kakariko Village, right on the cusp of nighttime, so we can get the sun song. And there's some vertex shading coming into play here with the shifting of the textures on the ground. You can kind of see them kind of like melting, like you've done some acid. But let's see. I don't know if I can make it in time. Just no walking, all rolling, all rolling. I'm surprised someone hasn't come out with a mod or hack of this game where you're like, you're Sonic, and you just kind of spin dash through everything. It's really shocking to me. Oh, I want to see the retextures for these. Oh, that's nice. I always thought it was funny that they laugh when they die. But that was a really good retexture work, and I'm glad that we bumped into those guys. And unfortunately, we won't hear the Kakariko theme here, but going back to my first video, that was when I really connected with this game, because I really was turned off from it when I first started playing it after playing Majora's Mask. And here's Grog from Majora's Mask, and I don't think he has his mohawk in this game, which makes him that much more terrifying. He's just some bald dude with pale skin. He honestly looks like a heroin addict. These bags of God knows what that he has sitting next to him. Let's just have a chat with Grog, shall we? People are disgusting. My own father and mother are disgusting. You must be disgusting too. But it was at this point when I reached Kakariko Village and I heard that music that that's what got me going. That's what really allowed me to finish this game to completion. Were these little tidbits of areas from other Zelda games, and it stands to reason that nostalgia is a big winning factor for a lot of people for playing this game, even though it has aged poorly. Again, not a bad game. It's just there's a lot of nostalgia associated with it, especially if you've played previous Zeldas. I know we can get at least 10 from this area, Skulltulas that is, so we can get our wallet upgrade and not to worry about wasting rupees when we find them. How many do we have? 9. Okay, so we're almost there. There's a bunch of them here though, but it makes sense that there'd be a lot here because the spider house is here and they wouldn't wander too far from home. And this is the first Zelda game that starts like a overworld scavenger hunt type thing that will prevail throughout Zelda and just games in general. Like, oh, here's this collectible goodie that you can find throughout the entirety of the overworld. Here's one here. I forgot. Okay, this isn't the GameCube version. Okay. Let's see here, we're gonna shoot this. We're gonna climb this here. And that's Walgreens calling me, but I can't afford $90 for my Omeprazole right now, so we're gonna have to wait on that Walgreens. Yeah, this is definitely Walgreens. Hey, you know, this medicine that we well established that you can't afford right now until your insurance kicks in. You want to fill that? You want us to throw it in the trash? But yeah, we should have 12 or 11 Skulltulas now. And we do. Now let's just go ahead and get this out of the way because I do need an empty bottle. And I don't feel like I need this milk at all. And here's another thing that they really fixed in Majora's Mask is that the bottle is actually shaped like a bottle and not a fucking ice shard that clearly has no liquid inside. But you know, let's just go ahead and give this to you. Unlock this passage here. This is surely Princess Zelda's handwriting. Well, let's see. Okay, I don't even want to make a joke here about it being, and I think because Game Grumps touched on it, just like written in crayon or something. We're not really here for comedy anyway. Comedy is not my forte. By the way, Mr. Hero, you know, if you're gonna climb Death Mountain, you should equip a proper shield. I have a proper shield, but thank you for the tip. Let's see, if you're going, you should check out the bazaar. They sell the shield you'll need there. Tell them I sent you, and they should give you a special discount that you don't need. Let's see. God, this guy, oh god, I forgot how much he ran. Oh yeah, I remember that I used to make save files when I would play through this game, skipping this initial point. Because this is when the game really starts to pick up momentum. People criticize a lot of 3D Zeldas for having slow openings, but I think that Ocarina is a big offender there. The game really doesn't. We're like, I think, an hour and a half in, closing in on 2 hours of gameplay, where it just really takes a while for the ball to get going. It really does. So now we have an empty bottle. I know you're gonna need Deku Nuts in a second. Depending on the length of the video, I think we'll just get the wallet, and I'll just call it a video here for the sake of brevity. But it irritated me so much. Okay, because here's our first Skulltula, cursed family member, and like he was far into adulthood, and I think he only did it because of the commenters. He did not pick up the adult's wallet ever. And let's see the retextures here. No retexturing. And it's interesting. And you can, if you hit him enough times, he will build enough momentum where that spiral there, will just like be the size of the room. And I always thought that was neat. Oh Jesus, text crawls. Okay, thank you. This is a neat little side quest here. Very well utilized in Majora's Mask about how they become self-contained. Little scavenger hunts as opposed to being in the big open world, but of course they are replaced by other scavenger hunts that are similar. We are going to get the Sun Song and call it an episode. It's always kind of bothered me that geographically speaking, Hyrule, it never stays the same. Like, I understand the you know, we may be remembering this through the eyes of other people, that there are geographical tectonic shifts, but relatively speaking, Hyrule never looks or is the same as far as its layouts where things are. And it's fine in respect that, you know, as technology grows, so should the ability to have bigger areas, but if they don't have the same geography, that's kind of moot. But there's another way to get Skulltulas. And I don't know if it's ever actually said outright that you're supposed to put the bugs in the hole, but I learned that from Majora's Mask, that putting bugs in holes makes those come out. And I think that Dampé won't let us. I'm just kind of testing this out. I don't think Dampé will let you mess with the graves. Oh. So I could have gotten a Hylia shield for free, but again, we don't need to do that. And I think you can get a heart piece from doing this. You know what? Come on, Dampé, let's go on a quest for a heart piece real quick, because I've never done this before. Played his little game where he digs up the hole. I think I dipped into it one time and just like he just kind of digs up trash. But I think that you can get a heart piece this way. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a monster. I'm a human being. I love him in Majora's Mask. Just how he's a complete and total coward. I'm just scared of everything. Nope, nothing here. Okay, well, let's go to the next patch. Since we've established that I have a complete disdain for rupees. But knowing my luck, you probably have to go around the entirety of the... Come on, man. He has to go around the entirety of the graveyard, and you have to waste all your rupees. But, you know, rupees aren't hard to get, so just get right on top of this. 10 rupees for one hole. Yeah, I got it! Okay, cool. Cool. That's just good to know. That it's right here, geographically speaking. But, anywho, here's our first use of the Zelda's Lullaby. That'll actually take us into this royal grave here for the composers, and of course there's clues laying around that you can get something for going into this grave, that you can go in there and get a song. But, of course, not having the sun song just kind of adds more to the goddamn waiting. So having that is instrumental, and it's also very useful, and you'll see that in a second, with dealing with the undead freezy enemies. But here's something that I never saw Erin did, and there's a funny little counter at the end of that How Not to Play video about how many times he gets hurt by bats. Most, if not all, enemies are vulnerable in some facet to the Deku Nut, which he just never uses, and in fact, I think vocalizes how useless it is. But with throwaway, as he puts it, enemies like bats, they're easily dispatched by just whipping out a Deku Nut. It completely immobilizes them and brings them down to where they're at. It's irrelevant once they're on the ground. But anyway, I think that getting hurt will stop us from getting frozen by the re-deads. Yeah, just kind of that... it's kind of like damage boosting in Mario. That kind of just keeps them from hurting you. Okay, so we're going to get the Sun Song here. And it'll actually take effect and make it daytime at Kakariko, and then we'll call it an episode. But it's the secret melody of the Composer Brothers. I always liked playing the double Song of Time more. It felt more like it was more disorienting. This is more cheery, you know. It is the Sun Song, you know, sun, happy, whatever. But the double Song of Time had more of this, like it felt like, at least to me, that it felt like time was slipping out of your hands. Regardless if you were doing it on purpose, of course. You probably were playing it on purpose to advance time. But it had this way of making you feel like you were losing time. But that goes along more with the themes of Majora's Mask anyway. Here it's lackadaisical. Like, Ganondorf is essentially waiting for you to find the Soul Stones for him, because no one's cooperating with him, and he doesn't want to take them by force, so there's no sense of urgency ever in this game. Even past the child section, never a sense of urgency, a sense of doom. You're free to do it at your leisure, which is fine, but again, I have this huge rating boner for Majora's Mask, and I love that, you know, that sense of doom is always kind of there, but here it's from one extreme to the other, and Majora's Mask is always present. It's always going really, really hard, but in here there's just no sense of urgency ever, unless you're like doing the big Goron side quest where there's an obvious timer that's a little bit too on the nose. Actually, you know, when you actually see that timer and not just the clock that's the bottom of Majora's Mask, which is a good way of handling time because it just looks like a standard clock until things come down to the wire. It's just kind of there, but when there's a sense of urgency here, we have our timer, you know, like you're on the clock. But any other time, it's as leisurely as a day at the beach. But anyway, just for the sake of brevity, again, and then there's nice pop-ins, some of those loading I was talking about. But we'll save here, and we'll call it an episode.